Receivers.
More papers. The divas.
So this is where my number one burn me. I will not draft him no matter what he says. We'll fight in the middle of the fucking draft if we have to.
Is it Odell Beckham?
No.
Oh,
I love Odell. Odell Beckham took us to a championship the Brady year.
Okay.
We picked him up on waivers his rookie year.
Yeah.
And he carried.
It's a guy that I'm really high on. I think every fantasy expert in the world is really high on this guy, except for the black guy. Only
Hopkins or Keenan Allen?
Keenan fucking Allen. Keenan Allen has a pattern, and he doesn't want to believe. Keenan Allen has a pattern. Great year, hurt. Great year, hurt. This is a hurt year.
Yeah, because he had a great year last year. Yeah.
All right. He burned me both times on the hurt year. No Keenan Allen on tickle your tonsils.
So
this
Keenan
year.
Allen will be our first pick in this year's draft.
He will not.
He is nasty, and he put up some nasty numbers last year.
Average 10.5 yards per catch.
Yeah, no, listen.
From 2014 to 2016. And that includes shit years too, man.
No, this is the problem. Is that those years that he gets hurt, he's playing well before he gets hurt, and then he fucking twists pinky toe.
He had a lacerated kidney. I mean, it's not injuries that.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, he did have an ACL.
How does that happen?
He fell. I was actually watching the game, jumped up for a touchdown catch, and when he landed straight on his back and lacerated his kidney. It's just an injury that happens. I mean, listen, Antonio Brown gets banged up sometimes. There's a lot of... I'm not shying away from Antonio Brown ever. He is much man, but guys get injured, dude. He's a guy... Listen, we're going to get to him. Let's start breaking down our tiers.
Right.
Because we're going to get to him.
But you just said he's our number one pick. So he's a tier guy.
That's a joke.
Guy.
He's a top tier receiver for me, and we're going to get to him really quick. Let's just break it down.
Okay,
so,
number one.
I don't even want to talk about this guy, Antonio Brown. Let's just move on.
Yeah,
if you know how to spell fantasy football, you know Antonio Brown is the number one guy.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I think we get into number 2, number 3 because a lot of people are kind of on the fence. They either go one of two people. Their 2 and 3s are either Hopkins and Jones or Jones Hopkins. One of those. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Both of those guys for me are interchangeable. A lot of why people are a little low, I guess. I mean, you can't really be low if you're number 3, but a little lower on Jones is because he only caught like 3 touchdowns last year. I think that's going to change. I would give my left foot if he caught 3 touchdowns or less this year.
Okay.
I think he's going to be somewhere in the 6, 7, maybe 8 touchdown range. He had 1,400 yards last year.
So there you have it, listeners. That is the left foot guarantee.
The left foot guarantee.
That is Plex's left foot guarantee.
Left pinky toe.
Okay.
I'll give my left pinky toe if he catches less than 3 touchdowns. But it has to be cut off with a shovel.
On air.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
On air.
Come on, Julio Jones, don't let me down. But he can't get injured. If he gets injured, that's off.
Okay.
If he plays a full 16-game season, catches less than 3 touchdowns, I'll give my left pinky toe.
Oh, my God.
Okay? Now, DeAndre Hopkins, 13 touchdowns last year. That's fucking monstrous. You know, a lot of it depends on Deshaun Watson. Is he going to stay healthy and all that stuff? Mm-hmm. But even without Deshaun Watson only played like 6 games last year. Even without Deshaun
he was still able to produce.
He still was able to produce.
So with who at quarterback?
Exactly.
I don't even remember.
Pepito
was.
Overpaid McLovin.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So he's going to produce week in, week out.
Didn't that dude step? No, it was the other guy, right? That in the one game in the end zone, he stepped out on his drop back, stepped out for a safety. It was the other guy, Tom, whatever his name is.
Tom Riddle.
Yes, Voldemort stepped out of the end zone.
Yeah, well, who cares who he was, but yeah. I mean, listen, the guy's going to produce. It's again 2A, 2B. Either one of those guys, you're not going to go wrong with. Now, OBJ.
Yep, he's there. My number 4, absolutely.
He's number 4. I mean, when he plays, he's a beast.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
funny to say that a wide receiver who plays with a Manning and Eli of all people is a beast. But yeah, and the hair is so nice.
Yeah, no, I mean, Eli Manning throws on the ball, man.
That guy outside of Antonio Brown's has the best hands probably in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I mean,
I would
Larry Fitzgerald obviously is always up there.
Fitz,
but
man, how far has Fitz fallen? Like just a
not that far.
He's
according to homeboy here,
huge chubby,
dude. Yeah, Fitz is being picked up as the 40th pick.
Oh yeah,
in most drafts.
Give me Fitz.
Okay, all right,
that's Fitz.
All right.
My problem with OBJ is just when he's not on the field.
Okay.
You know, he's a hothead. He's a guy that lets his emotions kind of get to him at times. I'm not really big into the whole like off the field thing, if you know, whatever, like you were about Elliott, but he is a hothead. He lets his temper get to him. He will throw punches at guys if they get in his head. He will let guys get in his ear and throw him off his game a little.
He gets into his feelings is what we call it.
Yeah, a little, but I'm not too worried about that stuff. He's going to produce.
Kiki, do you love me?
In my feelings.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about all that stuff.
All right.
I'm more worried about the injury thing. Hopefully he can stay healthy. If he does, yeah, he's definitely a top 5 guy.
After that, I have Keenan Allen. So,
oh my goodness, I love me some Keenan Allen.
Eat a bag of shit.
Listen,
Keenan Allen
he is a very talented player.
Yeah.
Is just
as long as he
it just has not worked out for me in the past.
All right. Hey man, you do you.
You
do you.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. He was top 5 in all receiver categories last year. Receptions, yards, touchdowns. I mean, you name a receiver category, he was top 5 in it. He has a very weak schedule this year. Kansas City's defense has gotten a little worse. They got rid of their number 1 corner in Marcus Peters. Went to the Rams.
Eric Berry's not there at safety.
Denver
Reed,
lost.
Whatever his name is.
Yeah, he's still there.
Oh, okay.
But I'm talking about corner. Reed's a safety. Barry's a safety, sorry. Denver lost Talib Kweli. So you can drop one of his little songs right there. They lost Alib Talib.
Kweli. Akib Talib.
Akib Kweli.
Got it.
Whatever his name is. He also went to the Rams. So, another corner in that division that's out of there. Now, he was the most targeted receiver in 2017. Keenan Allen. He's going to get you touchdowns.
Yeah,
in a pass-heavy offense. Because this guy loves to throw the ball. He's the only, one of the only gunslinger, quote-unquote gunslinger types still left. All right. He's just going to have a monster year. 159 targets last year. I mean, the dude's a beast. The dude's a beast. He's going to have a monster year. He's my number 5.
I see who really runs the draft.
Yeah.
In your team.
Yeah.
No. He has a lot of input on it. You
just don't listen to it.
We tend to agree. Honestly, we tend to agree on about 90% of the guys that we talk about. Mm-hmm. He just gets mad at the guys that burned him in the past.
So I get in my feelings.
Yeah. So
just
what
like
right now
Beckham.
With wide receiver, we would say that wide receiver is probably the largest group of people where you've got.
There's the most depth.
The most depth is wide receiver, because you're still talking about, we're just at number 5 in Keenan Allen, and we still have friggin' AJ Green, Michael Thomas, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Adam Thielen, Tyreek Hill, Amari Cooper. You're talking about friggin' names.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of talent.
T.Y. Hilton, FIU baby.
Oh yeah.
We created that. We created that. That TY chant, the whole TY, that was made by us at an FIU game when he ran in touchdowns. We're like, yo, TY. T. And honestly, if you saw him outside of the football field, he looks like just an ordinary dude who's got cornrows, just chilling, skinny.
Were you the cop or the Indian?
For what?
For the YMCA chant?
You son of a...
Oh, okay. Yeah. Which one were you dressed as? Okay. So, yeah. TY. I mean, listen, there's tons of guys. Yeah, you can cut that out.
No, it's all good. I like it.
There's tons of guys at receiver. There's just a lot of talent. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of the guys are...
I'm going to do it after. I'm going to take all the photos before I leave. Dude, I need this. This is great research. Great oppo.
Yeah, a lot of the guys, though, the problem with why I go running back heavy in the first couple of rounds is because
it's a non PPR.
Well, not just non PPR. It's because a lot of these guys are dependent. Most of these guys, the elite guys are going to get their numbers. The non-elite guys is the back end of the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 guys. A lot of those guys sometimes depend on the quarterback. So T.Y. Hilton 2 years ago, top 5 receiver with
last year.
Luck. Last year he burned a lot of people,
including us,
because he was our keeper last year. Not last year. Yeah, last year. Last year he was one of our keepers. I mean, they were just picking guys off the street to throw the ball to him. It hurt. So a lot of these guys, the receivers, Adams, one of the guys I want to talk about, I'm really high on this year. A lot of people are. Adams last year still put up great numbers, even without Rodgers,
who was out with the collarbone.
Yeah, so... some guys, some of the elite talent guys are going to be able to put up those numbers regardless. Some of the other guys are going to get hurt by it. So that's why I like to go running back first, but there is so much.
Well, that's the other thing. The reason you have to go running back first is because there is so much depth at receiver. You can wait.
Exactly.
As opposed to if you're shit out of luck on running backs right now, if you have 2 keepers and none of them are running backs in our league, you're
Out.
if you don't have a top 4 pick, you're hurting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can still get a guy like an AJ Green, a Devontae Adams, a Michael Thomas, a Mike Evans, T.Y. Hilton. You can get those guys in the middle, end of the second round, beginning of the third round. You can get guys like that. You're not getting David Johnson in the second round.
No.
You're
Hell
not
no.
getting a Zeke. You're not getting a Kamara.
Well, the simplest way to look at it is...
Well, you're
and
not
this is
even you're not even getting Joe Mixon in
No.
that spot.
Somebody broke it down to me like this. If you're in a 10-team league, right, there are 32 teams in the league, right? So 10-team league at the first 2 rounds, if everyone's taken at
Wait, if
least...
you're in a 10-team league, there's
you're-
32 teams in the league?
There are 32 teams in the
NFL.
NFL, and you're in a 10-team league. Every NFL team needs a starting running back, right? So that's fine, and that's great. But after the second round, if everyone's taken a running back, you've got backups and spot-ins and people like that. Whereas every team has 2, 3 receivers.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of depth.
And
It
and,
makes
and,
a lot of
with, and
sense.
with the way the NFL is now, slot guys are becoming more and more and more and more important to offenses. So a guy like a Jamison Crowder, dudes like that, those guys are very
They're
valuable.
just going to rack up numbers. So here's the thing. Let me ask you this. With that said, would you do maybe running back, quarterback if the quarterback is elite level at that, or would you do running back, wide receiver, quarterback? That's at like the 6th and 7th.
No.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm not picking up a quarterback in the third round. It's just not happening.
Okay.
I don't care. I mean, unless I'm in a 14-team league and all the running backs and top tier receivers are gone, I'm not doing it.
Okay.
No.
All right. So
So let's really quickly. AJ Green kind of had a decent year last year. The Red Rifle is not the ideal quarterback to have, but he finished top 12 in all categories for receivers. Top 10 in 4 of the last 6 years.
Oh, he's a monster,
Yeah,
and
he's a guy that's gonna get
he's
the ball
always
out,
going to
yeah.
find a way to produce, assuming he's healthy. It's just he's on an offense that's not, unless Joe Mixon really has a breakout year, he's in an offense that's going to go a lot of 3-and-outs. The defense is not going to get them the ball back very often.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, on a positive, they may be behind on a lot of games. They do play in a pretty tough division. They might throw the ball a lot.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm not counting a lot on Dalton, but AJ Green's just one of those players that he's gonna produce even with Andy Dalton at quarterback.
All right.
So Devontae Adams last year, I loved him even without Aaron Rodgers. I had him on my auction team. He put up great numbers for me. 4th most red zone targets with 24. 2 years where he scored back-to-back 10-plus touchdowns. He's the only guy in the league to do that.
Oh yeah. Oh shit.
Or one of 2 guys in the league or something like that to put up those type of numbers. Jordy Nelson's gone, which was a big target for
So
Rodgers.
now everyone
Aaron
just
Rodgers.
kind of generally feels that Aaron's going to start.
It's
feeding.
crazy how Randall Cobb's not even talked about it. He's just
Yeah, I mean,
irrelevant.
Randall Cobb's like, I think 33 or something like that. He's a little older guy. He's a slot guy. I actually like Randall Cobb this year. I actually like him a little, but I mean, later rounds 9, 10, 11 if he's
You don't think the presence of Jimmy Graham gets in the way of any of this?
A little maybe in the red zone,
Okay.
but he's never really had a ton of fantastic tight ends to throw the ball to, so I don't know how that chemistry is going to work out. Jimmy Graham, in between the 20s, has seemed to, like he's lost a step. In the red zone, I think he's still going to be pretty good target for him, but I like Devontae Adams.
Aaron Rodgers throws the ball deep a lot, and Devontae Adams is the guy he's going to be
hands
throwing
down
those
the number
to.
one guy
All right.
for him.
Especially after Ty Montgomery, like we said, was banged up a little bit. We don't know what his situation is going to look like because it is a leg injury. So, we'll see.
Yeah. The next guy, I would say Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
Drew Brees is his quarterback. Production was a little down last year, but he still had 149 targets, which is putting him
Monster.
up in the top.
Bonkers.
Yeah, in the top 10 in the league. He has a very favorable schedule this year. He was top 10 in yards and receptions last year, so there's no reason to think he's not going to do it again. He's the number one target for a Hall of Fame quarterback, and he's going to produce. He's going to produce again in a good offense.
All right. Who you got next?
Now, this is one I was a little kind of hesitant on.
Mike Evans.
Mike Evans. Damn, you're on my mind.
Yeah. I know you're not
Bald head.
I know you're not a big Mike Evans guy, mainly because you're not a big famous Jameis.
No. Famous
guy.
Jameis is hot trash.
So,
And he's suspended for the first, 2 games of the season? Yeah.
the only thing is that Mike Evans is like really big target, really good red zone, capabilities. So it's a kind of guy that you take a flyer on because of the potential. Who else are you going to throw the ball in the red zone to? Cameron Brate? I mean,
So actually, if you wanted to, this would be the year. So listen to his last 4 years in touchdown production. 12, 3, 12, 5.
Yeah. He didn't catch the ball a lot. And if you want to go with your up and down
this is
theory,
his year.
this is his year.
Yeah.
He's had the most red zone targets of any receiver since he's entered the league.
And he's built for Jameis Winston, basically. He's a big guy.
Yeah. Jameis Winston is extremely inaccurate.
Right.
He's a big guy that has a great catch radius. He's going to go up. He's going to catch contested balls. He's a guy that's going to, get a lot of red zone targets. The problem is, is he going to break that cycle and have another 4 or 5 touchdown year, or is he going to have another double digit?
Yeah, 12 touchdown season.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want you guys to know that it didn't require ESPN and their fancy studio for you guys to hear catch radius.
That's correct.
Catch radius right here on the Back of the Bus podcast.
Back to the Bus podcast.
I have the numbers for his catch radius if you want to hear them.
Fuck yeah.
No, I'm lying.
No, man,
that would be way too much homework.
That's nuts.
He has a
Give me the fucking Give me the
centimeter-
fucking Mike Evans sports science, my dude.
No, I
There
don't
you
have
go.
it. Sorry.
All right, pause for a second. You're listening to the Back of the Bus Podcast Fantasy Football Special. You're listening to us on one of your favorite podcasts app. It's either Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Again, rate us 5 stars if you love us, 5 stars if you hate us. Catch us on Instagram and the email. Hit us up on Instagram at
Back of the Bus podcast.
boom, done. And back to the show.
All right, so
It's called a refresh.
Dale.
You refresh it.
I want that horn, guys. I want no,
No, not on my show.
All right, so after Mike Evans, I'm gonna say
I'll get you something.
Oh yeah, that sounds delicious. I would have to say I really like Doug Baldwin this year, man.
That's my boy.
I really like Doug
Okay.
Baldwin this year.
1,000-yard back 2 years in a row.
See
Receiver.
it back?
Yeah, receiver.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
We know what you meant. Like, yeah.
I'm looking deep in your eyes.
Yes.
I know what you meant. But listen,
I'm still on half.
He's arguably one of the best slot receivers in the game. Yeah?
and it's funny because they
And now there's no Paul
categorize him as a
Richardson.
slot receiver because that's where he plays most of his
Snaps.
But I mean, he's a number one guy there. Slot
Yeah,
receiver or
absolutely.
not, he's the number one.
Yeah,
receiver on that
he's
team.
Wilson's favorite target.
Yeah, they're gonna throw the ball a lot. Wilson, every year has increased his attempts per season. And no Jimmy Graham, no Richardson there. He's going to get a lot of targets. He's ended up in the top 13 for fantasy receivers 3 years in a row. He's had at least 75 catches and 900 yards and 7 touchdowns the last 3 years in a row. And he has the 11th easiest schedule for wide receivers.
Okay.
So it's kind of just a bunch of numbers that are adding up to look like he's going to have a great productive year this year.
You don't think that the sore knee at the beginning of camp is going to affect him at all?
It may. I mean, the injury might drop him a little, which I would be fine with because they're all saying he's going to be ready for week 1. So if he ends up going in the end of the 3rd, beginning of the 4th, something like that, because people are afraid of that injury,
Better for us.
that's better for us.
Yeah, and we think he outperforms his 125 catches from last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so because there's fewer targets on that team now. Yeah.
And with their running back situations, like you never know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying all of those targets of those people that are gone are going to go to him because that's obviously not going to happen. But I'll give you one last number really quick. 29 touchdowns since he's come into the league. The only player with more touchdowns. Take a guess.
Todd Gurley.
No.
Le'Veon Bell.
Receiver.
Oh no, I got this one. Justin Tucker.
No. Receiver.
Antonio Brown.
Exactly. So when you're behind only Antonio Brown for touchdowns, you're damn good.
You're putting him numbers.
Yeah.
So go get Doug Baldwin.
Yeah. Or don't get Doug Baldwin if I'm in your draft. Let me get him. All right. So after that,
Jesus Christ,
there's
this is great.
Adam Thielen.
Yeah.
There's Stephon Diggs, kind of in that same category. They're going only a few picks from each other.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
2
So
to 3 picks.
Adam Thielen 31. Diggs
Probably
is at
34.
32.
32. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So they're back-to-back guys.
And that's on USA Today, CBS. That's who they're using.
Yeah,
for the
consensus. Everybody
Yeah.
I've seen, they're going within 1 or 2 or 3 picks of each
Yeah.
other. They're both good players. They got Kirk Cousins, who I like a lot this year. I didn't like in the past, but I like a lot this year. He's gonna throw.
And the
ball
only thing
around.
that's changed is his fucking uniform, by the way.
yeah,
his Redskin uniform.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, he's got way better weapons, and last year he put up crazy good numbers. these guys are good. He seems, I mean, again, it's preseason, but he seems to be having a really nice chemistry with Diggs.
Okay.
But Thielen is such a good player.
Yeah, dude, that guy came out of no. I hadn't even heard of that dude.
Adam Thielen?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
man.
then all of a sudden it's like, we got our asses kicked, on one of the games that we lost last year by that dude who had him, and I was like, what in the blue hell?
Yeah, he was 9th in fantasy points last year, top 10 in yards, receptions, and targets, and that's with Case Keenum, who had a very good year, very effective year last year, but. Let's face it, Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback. He's going to throw the ball a lot more.
Sister Cousins.
Hey, so where would you pick Demaryius Thomas?
Demaryius Thomas, I'm actually pretty high on this year. He would be like my tier 3, somewhere in my tier 3 for receivers, but I'm actually pretty high on him because of Case Keenum.
Case Keenum? Okay. All right, no problem.
Yeah,
there are a couple, there are 3 guys I want to ask you about just to pick your brain really quick, okay?
Right, shoot.
Okay. 1, Josh Gordon. How are you confident that he is going to be sober enough to get through a season and to produce fair enough to be put in as a wide receiver 2 or maybe even a flex?
Okay, so Josh Gordon for me, he has top 5 talent.
Yeah.
He elite.
I don't think
talent.
anybody disagrees. They just
it goes back to what we were saying about some of the running backs.
Yeah.
If you have the team to support him being suspended or whatever, and you can still move on. You go 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and you pick up Josh Allen in the 5th round. Josh Gordon, sorry. Josh Gordon in the 5th round. Knowing, hey, I got my 2 starting running backs, I got my 2 starting receivers, they're going to carry me. This guy is just, he's high upside for me. If he plays 16 games, you don't know. But he's going to produce when he plays. It's scary, man. He's one cloudy P test away from being suspended for...
forever.
Yeah, until he's 39.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just scary. Seriously, like he could, take a sip from the wrong glass of water.
One cloudy P test from being, what's his favorite target in the CFL? The white boy?
Johnny Manziel?
Johnny Manziel's favorite target.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean,
all right.
It's one of those risks you take if you have the luxury.
Or if you're on a really shit team and you had shit keepers to begin with and you want to just take a flyer to maybe set yourself up for next year, that might also be...
Okay. But then again, how is that, how sober is he going to be next year? Or the year after, or the year after that?
Well, I mean, I'd like to think, though, that if he can put one decent, one good, strong season under his belt, you can increase your expectations that will continue. Okay. As opposed to, if he goes 4 games this year and then he's fucked again, then, whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it all depends on how your team is built. If you're drafting him to be your number 1 receiver, you might be really, sadly, you might have.
Yeah, that's a boomer bust pick.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
that's the boomer bust pick of the draft.
All right, next, Devin Funchess.
Love Devin Funchess.
So do I.
I like him this year.
Would you consider him a sleeper?
I think a lot of guys.
Do you think a lot of people are maybe kind of just, because of the depth that's at wide receiver, people are just kind of like meh.
Couple of weeks ago, I would have said, yeah, he's a sleeper. Now I think a lot of guys are just, bumping him up and bumping him up.
All right, that's fine.
I actually also like DJ Moore, the rookie that they got there.
Yeah.
I like him a lot this year, too.
Okay, and then last but not least, 7-Eleven.
Oh, my God. He is.
He's going to get it?
He's going to get it.
He's going to get it?
He's going to get.
Black's looking at us crazy. He doesn't know who 7-Eleven is.
That is Chris Hogan.
Who's always open.
Oh. Yeah, he's always. Yeah. That was his nickname here when Reggie Bush was our running back for the Dolphins.
When the Dolphins did Hard Knocks.
Yeah, he nicknamed them 7-Eleven because he was like, man, that kid is always open.
7-Eleven, baby.
Yeah, listen, he's with Tom Brady.
Okay.
He's gonna produce. Edelman's out for the first 4 games of the season. Gronk is always one back injury or shoulder injury away from
being
missing,
a WWE wrestler.
Goddamn, him and Mojo Rawley as a tag team, they would invigorate the Raw tag team division. Let's go back to you.
I have a guy to ask you about once you're done on Chris Hogan.
I think that was it about Chris
Really
Hogan.
Quick, last year before he got injured, he did miss 7 games last year, so he's got to stay healthy. But before he got injured, he was on pace to score 10 touchdowns.
That's great.
Last year. There's no Brandon Cooks to take away targets. Edelman's gone for the first 4 games. No Amendola either, who went to the Dolphins. So 2 big targets out of there. Gronk is kind of an injury risk, even though he is the number 1 guy on that team. And this guy's missing the first 4 games of the season, Edelman. So you're looking at a guy that at least the first 4 weeks of the season, which is about 30% of the fantasy football season, if you're not counting playoffs, he's gonna eat, man. He's gonna eat, and he's gonna eat a lot.
Good. All right.
So a couple of guys. You just mentioned Amendola. I know you said you were high on him. Now that he's
I think he's gonna kind of step into the role that Jarvis Landry
left
vacated.
and went to the Browns to do.
Yeah. So he's going to turn out to be this guy's favorite target. He's got good hands. He runs good routes. He's in the place where he's supposed to be 99% of the time. Yesterday he had a touchdown reception.
okay.
Caught a little drag route, made a guy miss, took it about, I think it was like 12 yards or something for a touchdown. He's going to be a guy that's just reliable.
Do you think he might be able to pull off the reverse Wes Welker? Leave New England, come here, and
well, if he can stay healthy. I mean, listen, we're not New England's offense, and we're not going to be. As much as I would love for us to be, we're not. But he's going to get numbers. Even with a bad offense and bad teams, we weren't winning a lot of games. Jarvis Landry was putting up great PPR numbers. His touchdowns were not great until last year, but he was catching 100 catches a game. 100 catches a season. So he was putting up numbers. And I think he's the guy, if I had to say who's going to lead this team in targets and in receptions, it's going to be Amendola until he gets injured.
All right. What about Allen Robinson?
I'm a little low on Allen Robinson. He's coming off the ACL. I know a lot of guys kind of have him pretty high. He's coming off the ACL. He's going to a new offense. He's going to a quarterback who's only been in the league a year. This is, his sophomore year in the league. Didn't really play a lot last year. Kind of been up and down in preseason. I'm not super high on Allen Robinson.
All right.
Hold
on. Before you go.
Yeah.
I've got to go.
Okay.
Gotta be out.
Really quick, before you leave, one guy that I'm really low on this year, and two guys I'm really low on this year that I want to talk about really quick. Tyreek Hill. A lot of people are super high on
him.
He's a keeper for one of the guys in our league, which I'm glad he kept him. He finished top 10 and 11. He's finished top 10 in 11, I said. Finished top 10.
He did both. That's how good he was?
Yeah.
Not bad.
He finished top 10 in receptions and yards last year.
Uh-huh.
He was 8th in fantasy points, but they added Sammy Watkins, who's going to take away a little bit of, of his targets. And to me, he was a big play guy. If he wasn't catching a 30, 40, 50-yard touchdown, he wasn't really doing too much. Mahomes is the quarterback there, not Alex Smith.
Mm-hmm.
They still got Kelsey. They still got Kareem Hunt. They got a lot of mouths to feed. And I just don't think he's going to produce as many big plays as he did last year. And I'm kind of low on him this year.
Okay. All right.
Wow. Who's the other guy?
The other guy is Jarvis Landry.
Over the Browns, man. Yeah.
Even in a PPR league?
Even in a PPR league.
Okay.
So Tyrod Taylor does not throw the ball a lot. Tyrod Taylor throws the ball 22, 24, 25 times a game. He runs the ball. He gets some yardage with his legs, which is great for fantasy-wise. He's actually not a terrible fantasy pick, but he's just not going to get the volume he was getting here. He was getting 140 targets, 130 targets a season. He's not going to get it there, especially if Josh Gordon is playing. You got to throw the ball to Josh Gordon if he's on the field.
You've got to give him something to do. If he's on the free field, he's there for a reason.
Listen, you got a running back that catches the ball a lot in Duke Johnson. You got Carlos Hyde there at running back. And you got David Njoku there coming back from injury at tight end, who should be getting the ball a little. He's still a young guy, but he's going to take some targets away. I don't see Jarvis Landry getting the 100 and something receptions he's been getting here, and I definitely don't see him getting the 9 touchdowns that he did last season.
Dale.
Awesome.
All right. Well, listen, everybody. The show's not ending. I've got to go. I've got work to do. It's been actually have to go do work. That sucks.
That does suck.
I get to go. So everyone's still at my house, right? But now I get to go back to my house, sit on my table, and do orders for the whole week, and do events and all that other shit. It's gonna be fucking
mail order bride thing.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Nice.
All right. Well, enjoy that, and then enjoy your party, and good luck with your draft after.
Yeah. Dude, take photos of all this shit and send me
no problem.
Dude,
I got you.
Send me photos.
I got you.
And I'm going to text you randomly. I'm just going to text us
Yeah,
all.
text.
Yeah, if you need help, you say, "Hey, I'm here." What do I do? Or FaceTime us, and we'll take care of it for you. But if you win, I want 25% of your winnings.
I think our winnings this year are $600.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Later, guys.
Shock the system. Peace out.
Shock the motherfucking system.
All right. Anything else at receiver we want to touch on?
Yeah, a lot. I have a lot of receiver. I feel bad. I don't want to exclude half here, but Demaryius Thomas we talked about really quick. I like Case Keenum. It's a good offense. He's got a running back. He's got 2 good receivers there. A lot of good stuff about Cortland Sutton, the rookie that they picked up. I think he's going to have a big bounce back year. Yeah, he's going to have a bounce back year. Even with the hot garbage that he had at quarterback last year, he was in the top 10 in targets. He had 141 targets. The problem is he didn't score a lot of touchdowns. So I do think with Case Keenum, if Case Keenum tends to produce the way he did last season, I think those touchdowns are going to go up. He had a lot of targets, which you want. I mean, you need your number one receiver to get a lot of targets, and I think he's going to have that this year. A lot of people are down on him because his production the last 2 years has been somewhere around receiver 15 or 16.
And surprisingly, he's what? We talked about this here. He's 31 already?
Yeah, he's 31 already.
So he's aging, 30, I think he's turning 31 December.
So, yeah, a lot of guys seem to be, a little low on him. He seems to have maybe lost a step. But
that's another guy with tremendous hands, and he runs great routes.
Yeah,
so he
catches a lot of contested balls.
He can be like a Larry Fitzgerald type, where just because he lost some speed doesn't mean he necessarily has to lose all that much production. Just because he's just a very talented guy, and he's a smart football player. I really like Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah, me too.
How about Emmanuel Sanders? Let's just stay on that offense.
Emmanuel Sanders, I do like this year. He would be probably like a receiver, maybe depending on the 10 or 12 team league, receiver 3 or 4, maybe 5 if you get lucky, but probably around my receiver 4. Same thing, man. Good quarterback play is going to increase the production of that entire offense, and I think he's just going to be a guy that is. And the fact that CJ Anderson's not there no more is going to make that offense better. I mean, they have Royce Freeman that we talked about earlier.
That was just a shot at CJ Anderson.
Yeah, I know. He's another one of your burn guys. But I like Emmanuel Sanders later on in the draft as well. A guy I want to talk about really quick too. I love this guy, not only as a player, but as I just, I don't get into the person sometimes when I think fantasy, but I like him as a person. Juju Smith-Schuster? Love me some Juju.
Why do you love Juju as a person?
Dude, he's a kid. He's a kid that just goes out there and wants to have fun. Last year, he was riding a bicycle to work because he was 19 or 20 years old. He was the youngest player in the league last year.
Oh, shit. I know.
Yeah, he was a kid. And he tweeted out about how his bike got stolen and stuff like that. He's a fun kid, man.
Somebody done stole Juju Smith-Schuster's bike?
Yeah. Wow. And then after posting it, I don't know if that person returned his bike or somebody just bought him a bike and put it
in his little
funny. Yeah. So, I mean,
whoever you are who stole Juju Smith-Schuster's bike, if you're somehow randomly listening to this, you're a piece of shit.
You suck. Yeah, jackass.
But man, I mean, he's a good player. He's a productive player on a team that, is going to give him opportunities to make plays. You got Antonio Brown on the outside. That's going to get double teamed pretty much every play. You got Le'Veon Bell. So, you got a lot of mouths to feed, but this kid's going to be productive.
Is he? Because I don't know. Is he like a burner type of guy? Is he a
no? He's
possession guy.
He's more of a possession guy. He can get downfield. He makes contested catches. He's very. You can compare him to maybe Jarvis, but Jarvis dances a little too much for me. This guy kind of catches the ball and just turns and goes forward. He's a big guy. Like a lot of guys think, oh yeah, he's that 5'11", 195 pound. No. He's like 6'2", 220 or something.
Oh,
he's a big kid.
Nice.
I don't, not that he's a kid.
He's a kid. We're fucking twice his age.
But I mean, he was 19th last year in fantasy points, and he missed 2 games.
Okay.
So there's
definitely a lot of upside.
There's a lot of upside. He's a good yards after the catch guy. He'll catch contested balls. He's not afraid to block. He's not afraid to do little things. Not that you get points for blocking, but he's just a good player on a good team in a good system. I like him a lot this year. I mean, I would not be disappointed if he was my, if I decided to go running back really heavy. If he was my number 2 receiver, where I got a guy like, maybe I got lucky.
Thomas and Juju.
Demaryius Thomas and Juju, I wouldn't be disappointed with. A T.Y. and Juju, I wouldn't be disappointed with. A Doug Baldwin and Juju, I really wouldn't be disappointed with. But, I wouldn't be mad if I went heavy running back early in the draft. If he was a guy sitting there in the 5th round or so that I drafted, I'd be thrilled.
Well,
I'd be thrilled.
Frank's a big Juju guy, so he's the one we'd most have to worry about snatching Juju, I think, away from us.
Well, I mean, every league you're going to have that one guy that kind of is going to piss you off because he's going to take a lot of those players that you want. But, it is what it is. He's a guy, if he was there at the right spot, I wouldn't mind taking a look at him. Another guy I kind of like this year, I like both Golden Tate and Marvin Jones. I mean, not that I would draft both, but both of those guys are productive. Both of those guys are on an offense that throws
Golden
the ball
Tate
a lot.
surprisingly on a bust list on one of the places that you got your research from.
I mean, listen, every website you go to, I've seen a ton of guys, or I've heard the Fantasy Footballers podcast. There's 3 guys on that podcast. One of them has Kenyon Drake as his my guy of the year. This guy's gonna produce.
Can't
this guy's
miss.
gonna blah 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 blah. Yeah, and on the same show, one of the guys had Kenyon Drake as a bust. You know, there's a lot of stuff you got to look at when you draft guys. You got to look at the numbers. You got to look at the offense. You got to look at the bunch of stuff.
Schedule.
But sometimes you just have to draft with a little bit of your opinion, your heart, how you feel a guy's going to produce. You know, not everyone's going to agree with that strategy, but if you're on the fence between 2 guys, but you really like one guy because you had him last year and he didn't let you down, you tend to just say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to get that guy. So,
and Golden Tate's that guy. I mean, we didn't
Golden Tate
necessarily
is that
have
guy.
him last year, but he's the kind of guy that consistent numbers, consistent performance. You know, he might have a couple of weeks or 2 here and there, obviously, because Stafford can be erratic sometimes, but by the end of the season, it would have been a good pickup for you, especially at his average draft position.
yeah, listen, Golden Tate has had 4 years with the Lions, okay? In 4 years, he has averaged 90 receptions with the team, and he's had 1,000 yards in 3 out of those 4 years.
It's been 4 years already since he
been
got traded?
He's been 4 years since he's been on that
Holy
team.
shit,
He's
dude.
a yak monster. For those of you that don't know what yak means, it's yards after catch. He's one of the best yak guys in the league. Okay, he had 120 targets in every year he's been in that system. He's a guy that gets a lot of looks, pass heavy offense. I like him a lot. The problem is he's a more productive player in PPR leagues because he just doesn't get a lot of touchdowns.
Got it.
But in a PPR league, I like him a lot. Marvin Jones, another guy. He had the best yards per reception rate last year, 18 yards a catch.
Oh, shit.
So he's a deep threat guy. He's a big play guy. He catches the ball a lot, gets a lot of targets. He was 18th in targets, 11 in fantasy points last year. 9 touchdowns.
Really? Marvin Jones?
11th in fantasy points. He had 9. He's had 9 touchdowns in 2 years.
Okay.
In the last 2 years, there. Each year he's had at least 9 touchdowns. The problem is he's big time touchdown dependent. So unlike
Golden Tate,
who's going to get you a lot of catches, maybe not a lot of touchdowns. This guy might get you 3 catches in a game, but he'll get you 70 yards and a touchdown. So, you know, he might catch a 40-yard, 50-yard pass. So it kind of depends on how you want to play it.
Yeah, and how you're structuring your team. If you get one of each guy, maybe like one of those consistent guys and another guy who's a touchdown dependent guy, you might be all right. You probably don't want to bank on 2 of those guys.
Yeah, you don't want to bank on 2 big home run threats like a Tyreek Hill and a Marvin Jones. That's not ideal. But he was second in the league in red zone targets as well. Okay. So once they get down there, he's a big, tall guy. Once they get down there, they throw the ball to him a lot. They got rid of Eric Ebron. He's not the tight end there anymore. Yeah, maybe some more targets go his way. Or maybe more targets go Golden Tate's way. Either way, I like both of those players in a pass-heavy offense.
Got it.
Another guy that I like a lot this year, kind of, you know, we'll run down through a couple of names that I like. Goodwin, the receiver for San Francisco.
Okay.
Really nice rapport that he's built with Jimmy Garoppolo. He's the number 1 guy there. He had at least 9 points in a standard league in 5 games after Garson's injury. Garson's still going to be there. I just think he's the number 1 read for Jimmy Garoppolo. And I don't know. I think in the later rounds, again, as a receiver 3, 4, 5, if you get that lucky, I doubt you'll get him at 5. But, you know, as one of your later receivers in a flex spot or in a as your first guy off the bench, first receiver off the bench on bye weeks or whatever, I think he's a guy that I really like. Edelman, when he comes back from suspension, let's face it, it's Tom Brady. It's the Patriots offense. He's going to get a lot of looks once he comes back from suspension. If you have the type of team that can handle him sitting on the bench for 4 weeks in the later rounds, he's a great pickup. Robbie Anderson for the Jets. Now, he had McCown at quarterback last year. Now, he might get suspended because he's had some off-the-field issues this year. So there's a suspension that might be pending, but who knows? He scored at least 10 fantasy points in 6 games in 2017. He's the number 1 target. He was pretty high in...
and who's the quarterback in New York now?
Well, they drafted Sam Darnold, who's looked pretty good. He's a rookie, but he's looked pretty good.
Is he going to start, or is Teddy B going to start? I think I saw Teddy B.
There's a debate, but I think they might end up giving the nod to Sam Darnold.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. If it's not game 1, it'll be pretty early in the season. The Jets are just not a good team this year.
Right. Yes. So wouldn't that be more of a reason to kind of just let him get reps and practice and
yeah,
throw
unless
Teddy B out there, protect your investment?
Unless you want to give him that experience, you know.
Okay.
They might not think they're that bad. They might think, hell, we have a chance to win games. I'll tell you what, they won more games last year than I thought they were. I thought they would win 3 games the whole year last year.
Well, McCown had a surprisingly good year last year.
Yeah, he did. But really quick, Robbie Anderson had 5-game stretch where he scored a touchdown. So if you were playing him during that stretch,
you got great value for that guy.
Yeah, you got great value for a guy
and Decker's not there anymore, right?
Eric Decker is not there anymore, I don't think. Eric Decker, I think, just got signed and probably will be released by the Patriots.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So I think, he's a guy you want to look at. He's a guy that's going to get you some games where he's going to produce pretty well. A couple of quick notes. Nelson Aguilar,
not a fan.
I like him. He's going to be the number 1 target probably in the beginning of the year. There's a lot of talk of Jefferson, who I'm not that high on, starting the season. Alshon Jeffrey, that I'm not that high on. He might start the season on the PUP list, which will automatically make him miss the first 6 games of the season.
Oh, boy.
So in fantasy, that's half the season. If you're not counting playoffs. Who are they going to throw the ball to? Yeah, they got Wentz. They got Ertz there.
On Ertz.
They got Ertz. They got Sproles. Jay Ajayi, their starting running back, doesn't catch the ball all that much. So Nelson Aguilar, by default, might be the number 1 target on a good team, on a good offense. He's a guy, again, sneaky late rounds. You want to take a look at him. He might produce, especially the first couple of games if Alshon starts the season on the PUP list. We talked about Crowder, another guy. I've heard a lot of things with him and Smith.
Him and Smith. Rapport. Him and Smith kind of have that, we were talking about the other day. They have a good bromance brewing right now. The other thing I like about Jamison Crowder is that his best season came when Deshaun Jackson was there and he was like that deep threat that opened up that slot for him. So Paul Richardson's there now, and he's a deep play guy. Now you have Josh Dotson's back healthy after a full year. Who in some games last year he showed some flashes of why he was drafted where he was drafted. So that definitely should open the middle back up for Jamison Crowder, especially if they can get anything out of Jordan Reed, which is highly unlikely. But if that happens to be the case, if this happens to be a halfway decent Jordan Reed year, I would expect Jamison Crowder to go back to 800 yards, 5 or 6 touchdowns,
back to being relevant.
Relevant, yeah.
Yeah.
The running situation is gonna hurt. I think Geisel also would have helped because.
He would have helped big time.
The Redskins' offense is very play action oriented, and last year they were top 2 in the league in yards per play on play action, especially on first and second down. So that's going to affect how the offense is structured. But Jamison Crowder, I think, is the kind of guy who, talking about being able to go downfield and challenge for catches. He's not a big guy, but somehow he wins those one-on-one matchups. He's had a couple of really kick-ass highlight reel catches over the last few years where he gets downfield on a broken play and he comes down with the ball. So I'm really high on Jamison Crowder.
Yeah, I think what might help a lot of people last year. A lot of people were high on him last year, and I think he kind of burned some people.
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying playing him in your flex spot or stuff like that. He didn't help a lot of teams last year, so a lot of people might be low on him if they draft with their heart.
Let's take a quick break right there now that you mentioned that and talk about flex spot. What's your preferred strategy flex spot? Receiver or running back?
Running back. I like running back unless it's a big PPR league. And it also depends to me a lot on where you're picking. So if you happen to be picking later in the draft where you're not going to get one of those elite running backs in the first 5 or 6 picks of the draft, and you're, let's say, pick number 8, 9, 10, you can go receiver, running back in the second round, and then go receiver in the third or fourth, and just stack up on the pass catchers in a PPR league and hope that they will get you those points. In a standard league, I like flex spot running back.
Got it.
Running back. They tend to just get you some more points. They tend to not be as dependent on quarterback play because, of course, receivers are 100% dependent on quarterback play. Quarterback struggling, receivers are going to struggle. Running backs can still produce even though your quarterback is struggling. It's not helping them, but they can do it.
Sure.
So, yeah, I like to go running back heavy early and running back in my flex if possible. And, again, depending on how the league is structured.
Yeah, the other thing also is if you have a really plus matchup for a receiver, that that might influence your decision on who you're going to start that particular week. Three-headed monster is going to be a surer path to the playoffs than trying to go with a boom or bust receiver type guy.
Yeah, I agree. Really quick, a couple of names I want to rattle off. Cooper Kupp, I like a lot.
So do I.
He has a nice rapport with Goff. 6 out of 15 games, he scored at least 10 points last year. 4th most in red zone targets, believe it or not. So when they get down there, they like to throw the ball at Cooper Kupp. Not a ton of yards, not a ton of catches overall, but scored a good amount of touchdowns, has that nice rapport with Goff. Some people might think, he's going to get targets taken away because of Cooks, but Cooks is not a red zone guy. When they get in the red zone, they like to look at Cooper Kupp. We briefly talked about Randall Cobb. Another guy I want to talk about is Corey Davis, the number 1 guy in with the Titans. Now, injured kind of last year, didn't really produce when he came back, but had a monster playoff game where he scored 2 touchdowns against...
is that why his name's all over the place?
Yeah, so a lot of guys are high on him, but I mean, it's hard to put a lot of
stock in
a guy that, had one big playoff game. But, he's going to be the number 1 guy there. He's got talent. And he's got a lot of potential. I just don't know how high I'm willing to draft a guy like that.
Okay.
You got Sammy Watkins in KC. A lot of targets, a lot of mouths to feed. But, if Mahomes can turn into the good quarterback, a lot of people have him pretty high. Sammy Watkins had a decent year last year. If I'm not mistaken, he caught like 8 touchdowns. I think we looked it up.
Yeah.
He caught like 8 touchdowns last year or 7 touchdowns last year. He had a pretty productive year. Tyrell Williams in the later rounds. I'm talking about, 11th, 12th, 13th round. A guy like Tyrell Williams for San Diego. They have lots of weapons there, but he's a big-time target. He's a guy that they're going to look at a lot in the red zone. Him and his brother, Mike Williams. They're not really brothers, but calling them the Williams brothers. Tyrell Williams, Mike Williams. 4th, 5th receiver type. Big touchdown production that they can both have on an offense that throws the ball a lot. Those are sneaky guys to take a look at later in the rounds. I really also like Michael Gallup. He's the receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. Their number 1 receiver is Allen Hurns right now. I think Gallup is going to be playing a lot of the slot stuff, and he looks pretty good. I mean, he's had a pretty good rapport with Prescott in the preseason.
Okay.
Caught a couple of nice balls. I just think he's a guy, sneaky guy, kind of like maybe can be like the Crowder role.
Gotcha.
In that offense.
So, for the record, Sammy Watkins, 593 yards, 8 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yards per reception, 15.2.
Yeah, so again, if you want a guy in the later rounds that's going to get you 8 touchdowns on your team, maybe be that flex spot that we talked about. On an offense with a lot of weapons, why not? Why not take a shot at that? I'm not super high on Calvin Benjamin. I know a lot of guys, are like, oh my God, you haven't talked about Calvin. We talked about 35 receivers before Calvin Benjamin. Listen, he is the number 1 target on a team. You always want to grab a number 1 receiver if the price is right. But he plays on a really bad team. Who knows what's going to happen with Shady? He's not a running back that we talked about when we talked about running backs. I have Shady really low this year. He's 30. He's on a bad offensive line. They lost 3 out of their 5 starters this year. 3 guys, 2 of them I think retired, and 1 guy left in free agency. So they lost.
1 guy just went to the woods and some shit and never came back.
Yeah. Rich Incognito's lost his shit. They lost a lot of guys on that team, on that line.
And it's a new quarterback.
Who knows who the quarterback's going to be? It might be Josh Allen. It might be Patterson or whatever his name is. Teams are going to key on Shady. They're going to try to stop him. He's a really good back, but he's 30. And that off-field story with him and, sending somebody to beat up his girlfriend for jewelry and all this craziness. Nobody knows what's going to happen with him. Is the NFL going to come down on him? it's a crazy story. Look it up. There's something about somebody broke into his house and beat up his girlfriend when they were separated, and his girlfriend's allegation is that he sent the guy to beat her up and take her jewelry and all this crazy. They haven't been able to prove anything, and right now he hasn't had any convictions. But if the NFL tries to pull a Zeke Elliott thing like they did last year, where they in the middle of the season they suspend them, it's going to be a big blow to guys. But yeah, I mean, Calvin Benjamin just on a bad team. I just don't like him this year.
I got a guy that we didn't talk about earlier that I wanted to ask you about. Amari Cooper. We didn't really touch on Amari Cooper.
Yeah, we did not talk about him. I have him over here. I have him as like my receiver 24, 25-ish. A lot of people have him a little higher actually, which I'm okay with. I mean, again, number one receiver, Michael Crabtree is out. I don't know. I think Gruden's offense is going to go down to more like grinding the ball, a lot of Marshawn Lynch. They have Doug Martin over there as well.
Muscle Hamster's in Oakland?
Muscle Hamster is in Oakland.
Oh, I didn't know that. Jordy Nelson's there now, so that might also affect some of this guy's targets.
Jordy Nelson's there. He had a lot of drops in 2017. Amari Cooper, if I'm not mistaken, was somewhere in the top 5 in most drops for receiver.
That's been his bugaboo throughout his career because he has all the other tools. It's just, if he's not focusing on making the catch, it tends to be problematic for him.
Yeah, he had a really disappointing year. 48 catches, 680 yards, and 7 touchdowns last year. The 7 touchdowns is not bad, but everything else is really
for a number one guy on what was a pretty good offense up 2 years ago towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, if he's a guy you're looking at to be your number 2, I think you might be disappointed. I think he's going to end just outside that number 2 receiver range. But as a flex spot, as your number 3 receiver, if you're running a 2 running back, 3 receiver type league, yeah, I mean, he's not a terrible pick. He's got decent value this year, but to me, it all comes down to value. If guys are overhyping him and they draft him in the 4th, 5th round, no, I'm not looking at him there. There's a lot of other guys that I think have bigger upside that I would rather draft before him, but he's definitely there on my list.
Got it. And a name you just mentioned right now in this conversation was Michael Crabtree. Where are you at on Michael Crabtree?
I don't know. It's weird. He's one of those kind of like, he could have a big year. Flacco, I don't have a lot of faith in, even though, everything that they've been saying about Flacco is he has... the Lamar Jackson pick has lit a fire under his butt. He looks great. He looks confident. He's coming out there and looking like that Joe Flacco that helped them win a Super Bowl. Michael Crabtree's, older player. I want to say he's 30 years old, 29, 30, I think. Older player on an offense that's not really going to be that, I think, great. Probably middle of the road offense, 17th, 18th, 17th offense in the league. So,
wasn't there somebody you were saying that kind of one of those rapport guys that we're talking about with Flacco now?
Yeah. A lot of nice stuff has been coming out about John Brown. Him and John Brown seem to kind of be clicking a little, like little bed buddies. It's the same thing, similar to Crowder and Alex Smith. You like to hear things like that when you're looking at fantasy guys. I'm not saying base all your stock on that, but you'd like to see stories of, hey, this guy's looking at him in practice all the time. He looks to be his number 1 read. He looks to be his number 1 target. He, this, that, and the other.
Yeah, when he's scrambling around and it's a broken play, that's who he's going to look for. That's going to be his first read or whatever in that situation. A guy that he has confidence in, that he's going to come down with the ball, that he's not going to give up a fluky pick because quarterbacks. Yeah,
he's not where he's supposed to be, or runs a 10-yard hook when he's supposed to run a 10-yard out. Yeah, so, I mean, John Brown has had injury things, and he has disappointed guys in the past. I know a lot of guys were really high on him
a couple of years ago. I was, absolutely.
But, he's going to be running that slot position where we've talked about has been very productive in fantasy the last, 6, 7, 8 years. And he's kind of just building that rapport with Flacco. So I think he's going to have a decent year. We talked a little bit about DJ Moore. We mentioned his name. I like him. I like him a lot. He's the rookie for Carolina. Him and Cam, in the preseason have been a nice little connection. Not a guy who would draft over Funches or whatever. But if you start getting injuries to that team, let's say Greg Olsen goes down again with an injury, who's Cam's favorite target. Maybe Funchins goes down with a little, gets banged up, or McCaffrey goes down. Just something happens where the targets tend to shift a little to DJ Moore. He's going either undrafted in a lot of drafts, I think, or going really, really, really late, 11th, 12th, 13th round. They don't throw the ball particularly a lot in Carolina, but he's a guy you might want to keep an eye on really late if you happen to not be able to grab a bunch of receivers that you want early. If you go running back heavy in the draft, he's a guy later on that
to take a flyer on.
Yeah, take a flyer on. Maybe has a couple of productive games if you play him at the right time. Cam Meredith, Taywan Taylor. Taywan Taylor, he's the number 2 for Tennessee.
Okay.
So, he's looked good. He's looked good in preseason.
And who's Cam Meredith?
Cam Meredith is the number 2 or 3 guy, depending on how you see it, with the Saints. Again, Drew Brees had a little bit of a production drop last year, but if he comes back to form, there's a lot of balls to go around there, man. There's a lot.
Did he play last year?
He was in Chicago last year. That's probably why you don't know who the hell he was.
Well, no, because on his page here, I see
he may have been injured, but he was with a Chicago team last year. I
see 2015, 2016 stats. I don't see. Let me see 2017 season.
He may have been.
Towards ACL.
But he was on Chicago.
Yeah, correct.
So he's a guy coming back from an ACL injury, but he's on a productive offense.
But to your point, in Chicago in 2016, the year he was healthy, he had 66 catches, 888 yards, an average of 13.5 yards, and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean that's not terrible.
No,
if you're looking late rounds for a guy that
isn't the
may
PPR
even go undrafted.
66 catches. That's fucking.
Yeah. I mean, for a guy like I'm saying, he's going to go either double-digit rounds or may even go undrafted. He's a guy to keep an eye on. And one last name I want to throw out there, Geronimo Allison. He is the number 2 / number 3 receiver for the Green Bay Packers. So again, guys, Green Bay, they throw the ball a lot. They like the receivers. Randall Cobb's already a little dinged up. Who knows how productive he's going to be. Geronimo Allison might be the other guy on the outside. They do run a lot of 3 receiver formations with Cobb at the slot, but he's a guy out there that might be a couple of years ago. Devontae Adams was that guy, right? Where they still had Jordy Nelson, they had Cobb, and Devontae Adams was the guy that he would still get a lot of catches and touchdowns and stuff like that. So just a name in a good offense with a good quarterback that you may want to keep and stash and see what happens.
I mean, how do you feel about my boy Dotson? Let me tell you his stuff from last year. And then you could tell me what you think.
I mean, yeah, I don't know how much I trust that offense. If I'm going to pick a receiver on that offense, it's going to be Crowder.
All right. Last year, Josh Dotson, 35 catches, 502 yards, 6 touchdowns.
Yeah, the touchdown production is not bad, but that's very touchdown
dependent.
Yeah, you got to
long of 52.
Yeah, that's not bad if you break it down like that. But again, you got to play him at the right week. If you're not playing him on the right week, how many, multiple touchdown games did he have last year?
No, it was 1 touchdown games. There was a game where he didn't catch one that game. He would have had 7 touchdowns. They got fucked on a what I thought was an overturn call in the Kansas City game that would have won us that game. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's not bad. Again, not a guy I'm looking at to be a starter on my team, but 4th, 5th receiver.
So the reason why I was kind of high on him to start the season last year, the first 2 weeks he had 23 targets in the first 2 weeks. That number dropped significantly after. He didn't double-digit targets at all. After that, he had 2 7-target games that were his high. After that, both in losses. But I mean, if it's a guy that if he can live up to his potential, I don't know. He's big radius guy. He comes down with the ball. That fucking catch in that fucking Kansas City game should have been a goddamn touchdown. But I don't know. I that's a guy that maybe off your waiver wire pick if you guys are hurting at receiver and he's putting up some decent numbers. You guys might want to keep your eye on.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye on him. Obviously, keep an eye on everybody. If I were to pick a receiver from that core, it's going to be Crowder.
yeah, if you're going to draft a receiver, you're drafting Crowder.
Yes.
Dotson is just the kind of guy that, you know, because in fantasy football, we've talked about this a million times throughout the podcast. Adjustments is what wins it for you. And that's the kind of guy that if he's playing well and you get him before everyone else realizes it, that can help you through a stretch where maybe you have an injury, maybe you just need a guy who plug and play on a bye week or whatever. That's the kind of guy who has the potential to give you a couple of 8, 9, 10, 12-point games in a row. You might not see him again, you might not need him again, but at least it's a name that you might want to keep an eye out versus a guy like, I don't know,
Devontae Parker.
There you go, Devontae Parker. Man, Devontae Parker is another guy who
don't get me started.
The potential for that guy.
It's another. That's a totally different 2-hour episode.
I think Devontae Parker's issue was Jay
he's
Cutler.
a vagina. No, his issue is that he's a vagina. He can't stay healthy. Every little tweak, every little thing, every little lot, he's injured. He doesn't fight for balls the way I thought he was going to.
Okay.
I thought he was going to be AJ Green 2.0. He has that talent. He has that build. He has that potential. He's just a vagina.
Got it.
He's just a big floppy vag. So yeah, listen.
Let's hope there's
you have to be
fantasy football.
You have to be
players.
fluid. You have to be able to keep an eye on stuff like that. I think what we noticed like last year or 2 years ago in our keeper league, the guys that win our keeper league do one of two things. They either draft really
exceptionally well.
And their players tend to not get injured and they go through the whole season with, a pretty healthy team and they end up producing very well. Or they happen to pick up that one waiver wire move that just catapults them from being a middle-of-the-road team to a championship. We did it the first year we won our championship. We picked up Alfred Morris.
Yeah.
In, I think, week 3, the beginning of week 3, off of waivers, we picked up Alfred Morris. We rode him all the way to the championship. He ended up as the number 3 or 4 running back that season. The other season we won it. We picked up Odell Beckham.
Yep.
He was injured for the first half of the season, came back, I think, week 7 or 8. We picked him up week 6, I think it was, and we stashed him for a week or two. And when he came back, he was a beast.
A world beater. Yeah, he was a world beater. That's the same year we did the Brady trade, which, a lot of people were like, oh, it's the Brady trade. Don't sleep on the contribution.
Yeah, Odell Beckham was the number 1 or 2 receiver that second half of the season in points. He was amazing.
Yep.
And, one of the years, the year Lance won the thing, I forgot exactly who he picked up, but he picked up it was either a running back or a receiver off of waivers in week 3 or 4 that took him to a championship. So
last year it was a crazy anomaly when Freeman lost. I think he turned over his starting skill positions twice and still won this league.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. But you either draft well or you pick up that one home run off the waivers. It's just little names of guys that you got to keep an eye on. I like Galladay, the third receiver for the Lions. Again, pass heavy offense, playing the slot. Might get some touches, especially if somebody gets banged up.
There's a couple of sites out there that have him predicted to usurp one of the 2 outside jobs from Golden Tate and Marvin Jones. So yeah, it's definitely got to keep an eye on.
I mean, with the production those guys have been putting up the last few years, I don't see it. I think he's going to stay in the slot again unless there is an injury, but still a name that you want to keep an eye on.
All right,
tight ends. Listen, tight ends is probably the weakest position in all of fantasy football. If you're not getting one of the top 3 guys, the Gronks, Kelce's, Ertz of the world, wait a little while. Some people like you and me sometimes have that Greg Olsen right at that fringe tier 1 guy. I put him at my tier 2, the top of my tier 2. That foot injury kind of concerns me a little. He is a little older, but I mean, he's the number 1 target for Cam Newton. He's a guy that's going to produce for you. He's one of the few tight ends worth drafting.
Yeah, he's amazing hands.
Yeah, at a decent round, he's worth drafting. So yeah, the top 3 guys are the top 3 guys. You draft them. You can draft them pretty early. Gronk's going somewhere in the end of the 2nd, beginning of the 3rd round. Kelce and Ertz, I think, are 4th round picks more or less. If you're getting those guys, good for you.
How do you think Kelsey's status is affected by the rookie quarterback or whatever he is?
It'll be affected, I think, a little, but he's such a good player. Young guys tend to lean on their tight ends a little bit. If they got a good tight end, he's just a guy who works the middle of the field really well. And he's such a big mismatch. I think he'll be all right. Ertz, Ertz is good, and as long as he's on the field, he's gonna produce. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Wentz loved him. Foles threw the ball to him plenty. He'll be fine.
All right. So who's that middle tier, the second tier guys that?
So starting my second tier, I have Greg Olsen.
Okay.
As at the top of my second tier, even though tiers, you can kind of pick any one of the guys in that tier. Greg Olsen has had 5 straight top 7 years before getting hurt last year. He's kind of going around round 5.
Okay.
Might be a little rich for my blood, but I do like him. I mean, he's been a good, consistent tight end for many years.
If he's healthy, he's a reliable 8 to 10 points almost week in and week out. We've touched on him plenty. He's a good pick.
Yeah. So after that, I mean, I have Evan Ingram, and I have Evan Ingram, Kyle Rudolph, Jimmy Graham, and Delanie Walker. That's kind of the end of my second tier.
All right, so real quick on Evan Ingram. Today we're recording. It's August 26th. Last night in preseason game, he got concussed. So that's something for you guys to be on the lookout for. Just, concussions are a tricky thing. And, I'll tell you right now, there's a guy in the Yankees who he's eaten 2 concussions this year. And it might have cost him his job because Judge got hurt. He would have been the person slotted into that spot. And he's not able to take advantage of it. So
concussions can, I don't want to say linger, but they're something that once you get a few of them, they will tend to happen a little more. So it is a tricky thing. The NFL obviously is trying to do its whole concussion stuff that it's great for the players, for their health and all that stuff, which at the end of the day is important. But, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. He's got 2 weeks before the season start. So, he'll have time to fully recover from it. But, when he's on the field, he was a top 5 tight end last year. But that was also with a lot of injuries to that receiving core. So, by default, he was like the number 1 target on that team. But he had a good year. He's a guy that's shown he can.
Yeah, he's got the talent for it.
Yeah,
he definitely does.
Can play at that level.
He has the ability to make big catches in big spots. So definitely somebody to keep your eye on. Just monitor that injury situation.
Yeah. So I have Kyle Rudolph here at number 6.
Love me some Kyle Rudolph.
I love Kyle Rudolph.
Even though he burned the shit out of me when he was in Notre Dame in the Michigan game.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, he's a good tight end. He's had 2 seasons with top 8 finishes. So he's been up there in that, second tier. I mean, that's a tight end 1. If you're in a 10-man team, that's a number 1 tight end. So is he getting you the points the top 3 guys are? No. But he's up there. He's productive. Cousins loves to throw the ball to tight ends.
Yep.
Reed can't stay healthy, but when he is healthy, he gets the ball a lot. Vernon Davis is somewhat relevant because Cousins throws the ball to him a lot. So it's a good situation for him. It's a good team. There is a lot of mouths to feed. Dalvin Cook, when he comes back, is going to catch some balls, but he's a big red zone threat for them. Yep. So I think he's going to have a pretty productive year. The only problem with him is that he only had 2 games in 2017 where he had 50 yards or more. So
touchdown dependent.
Very touchdown dependent. A guy that, might catch you 4 balls for 30 yards, but have a touchdown and will save the week for you. If he has those 30 yards without the touchdown and just the 30 yards on 4 catches, you're going to be a little pissed off.
Yeah, you're gonna need some bigger production on your other spots.
Yeah. Now, another guy that's very touchdown dependent is Jimmy Graham. 10 touchdowns last year, 19 red zone targets. He's playing in Green Bay now instead of Seattle. But, he's very touchdown dependent. He only scored 10 or more fantasy points 4 times last year, even with 10 touchdowns.
Wow.
So you're looking at games where he had 1 catch for 8 yards and a touchdown.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great when he gets you that touchdown.
Yeah, I think people are still drafting him on the name. Now, playing with Aaron Rodgers, different story. Aaron Rodgers very rarely had, big name tight ends to throw to, but when he did have, oh my God, was that big guy Cooks, right? That he had for a while. He seemed to like throwing him the ball. It didn't last long enough because Cooks got injured. So we'll see.
I mean, listen, it can be
late round flyer. Jimmy Graham, not bad.
Inside the 20, Jimmy Graham's going to get a lot of looks.
But if you're gonna reach for a tight end, Jimmy Graham's not the guy.
Absolutely not. If you're looking to draft Jimmy Graham in the 5th round, God bless you, but you're going to be sadly disappointed. I think. Can he get the 8, 9, 10 touchdowns he did last year? Sure. Is he going to get a bunch of 100-yard games? No.
Yeah, correct.
So this is what I'm saying. The drop after the top 3 guys is so drastic that I like to wait. I'd be happy getting the number 8 tight end, like a Kyle Rudolph. I'd be happy with that. He's going to be a top 10 guy. He's going to be a tight end 1, but I'm getting him in the 7th, 8th round. And I'm fine with that. 9th round maybe. Now, a guy that's the total opposite of Kyle Rudolph and Jimmy Graham, Delanie Walker. Now, Delanie Walker, I know last year burned you because you wanted that connection really well, but he's had a top 8 finish in the last 4 years. So he's been consistent. He's been productive. He has a lot of yards, but doesn't score a lot of touchdowns. He had over 800 yards the last 4 seasons. Only had 3 touchdowns last year.
Oh, listen, I think he's a talented guy. He's not on my burn list the way C.J. Anderson and Keenan Allen are, but the thing with Delanie Walker is that tight ends, I expected him to have a bigger role in the offense last year. He seemed to be getting targets, early in the season, and then it just kind of like...
It faded off. I mean, the play of Marcus Mariota faded off a lot too. That has something to do with it. They have a new offensive coordinator there. I kind of mumbled all those words in one. So there's a lot of high hopes there. Corey Davis, if you can stay healthy for the full year, might take a little pressure off of him, and that combination of Henry and Dion Lewis might also help him. But he's a guy that's the opposite of the other two.
Catches a ton of balls.
In between the 20s, he's going to help you a lot. Once they get into the red zone, just hasn't had a ton of production there, like Rudolph and Graham have. But in a PPR league, he might end up catching more balls than those other 2 guys. So. Again,
he might make up a little bit for the touchdown deficiency
depending on
in
the
a
system.
PPR.
Depending on the system you're playing in, he might be a little bit of a helper. Now, in my tier 3, I'm going to throw a name out there that a lot of guys are high on. I like him as well. He was a sleeper 4 weeks ago. Now he's going like the number 7, 6, 7 tight end.
Oh, shit.
Trey Burton. He's the tight end for Chicago.
Okay.
All right, so he came over from Philly last year. Chicago paid him a pretty big sum of money.
Okay.
He's a very similar to Zach Ertz.
Okay.
Very same type of game, same frame, same speed. Good tight end. He's looked really good in preseason.
Where did he play? College?
Good question. I don't know.
Okay. I'll erase that.
He's had a pretty good preseason. He looks like he's building that nice rapport with Trubisky. And, they young quarterbacks like to lean on those tight ends. Also, a big thing for him is Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator for Kansas City, is their offensive coordinator now. And in Kansas City, who they have over there?
Kelsey.
And Kelsey produced.
Yep.
They ran plays for Kelsey. They wanted to get their tight ends
involved.
They
moved them around a lot. They put them in the slot a lot. I think that's a underused strategy in the NFL. I think tight ends, especially tight end who can get down the field, you use a big body like that as a slot receiver. It's going to open up options for you.
Yeah, the problem is it's
going to create mismatches.
There's not a lot of tight ends that can do it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
This new flock of tight ends that came into the league this year, Gesicki here, Hurts that got drafted, he got injured for Baltimore. The guy that they drafted, the Philly drafted to replace Burton, Dallas Goddard, I think is his name. They're that type. They're that big frame, but they can run the 4.5,
yeah, like the
6,
the
40.
all those children, quote unquote, of Vernon Davis,
the Zach Ertz, the Gronks, the Kelce's, that mold, maybe not as big and strong as those first 2 guys, but there's more tight ends little by little trickling into the league. There's just right now not a lot of guys that can do it consistently.
Got it.
You know, a guy that I wanted to talk about that can do it, just can't stay healthy is Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed's that mold. Just can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
He's a guy that's on my burn list.
Right.
You know, but
And as of right now, he had bones in his feet removed.
yeah, I mean, he's got
So that to try and prevent like the injury from reoccurring, but like I don't know how I mean, you're the medical guy here. I don't know how the fuck that works. How you can
listen? I don't know either. Well, the type of medicine those guys get is not the same type of medicine me and you get, bro. So I don't know exactly.
Bones.
I don't know exactly how that's gonna work.
They just laced this dude with adamantium.
Yeah, he's got, you know, he might have Daffy Duck cartoon feet. Who knows? But listen, he's a guy that can produce when he's on the field.
Yeah, and the other problem with him is he's had his bell rung a few times, so he's a concern not only with like injury but like concussion.
Well, it all for me it all falls under the same branch. It's all injury. If you're not on the field because you're concussed or ACL'd or whatever the
I get
case
it,
may
but
be.
I think to me, I tend to put those into two different categories, and I'll tell you why. So if you're the kind of guy who you know, you get it like Keenan Allen, right? You were talking about earlier. He got a crazy freak injury, lacerated kidney. Those are the type of things that maybe don't happen that often, right? ACLs happen a lot, but it's a pretty big injury. You know, you'll have 4 or 5 big guys that'll go down with an ACL for a year, but you'll have a lot more often sprained ankle, hamstring, things like that. Concussion tends to be like you said earlier. It happens once. You're more susceptible to it happening again and again and again, and it just gets worse and worse. And that seems to be a thing that guys will get hit with that bug. I don't want to minimize the injury, but guys will get hit with a concussion bug, and that stigma will follow them, and it just tends to be repetitive. So that's more of my concern with a guy like Jordan Reed, because it's a repetitive issue. And that's always scary when you're talking about tight ends. Or talking about football players in general.
I totally agree with you. The way I see it, I mean, it sounds bad, but outside of the human aspect of it, I'm looking at fantasy.
Right.
If you're not on the field for whatever the reason may be, because of injury, it's an injury.
Gotcha.
If you get suspended for PEDs or whatever the case may be, that's a different story. Then you're in the Josh Gordon
camp.
Whatever, yeah. But if you're injured for shoulder, back, ACL, lacerated kidney, concussions, whatever, if you're not on the field because of injury, to me, it's injury.
Got it.
And his problem is not anything but injury.
Yeah.
Be it concussion, ACL, foot.
Oh, no, absolutely. When he's on the field, listen, the guy can break tackles, the guy can catch the ball, he can run with anybody.
Yeah, and the system you guys are going to run, Alex Smith likes tight ends.
Yeah. So
he likes to throw a ball. I mean, he's a sneaky sleeper pick for me. I think a lot of guys are going to shy away from him because of the injury history.
And because last year's disaster, yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, he's a guy that if you get really lucky and he produces for you, great. Or if you get really, really lucky and he's your number 2 tight end.
Right.
And you can play him certain weeks. Even better. But he's not a guy I'm relying on. He's a guy that I would pick up and I would stream with other tight ends like Jack Doyle from Indianapolis or David Njoku or guys like that, from game to game, depending on the opponent, they're going to have, some production. But I'm not depending on these guys to be week in, week out starters.
What about my boy, Jake Butt?
Jake Butt. He is in Denver.
Yeah.
Meh. I'm lukewarm on him.
I mean, super talented guy in college. Amazing.
Yeah, but he's not. He's the opposite.
He's an old school throwback type tight
he's
end.
the opposite of what we were talking about. Those tight ends. We drafted by we I mean the Dolphins. Like I'm part of their team. We drafted in the 4th round a tight end similar to him. More known as a short yardage, can catch the ball, very, very capable catching the ball, but well-rounded. Blocks, is not as fast.
Good red zone guy.
Yeah, maybe a good red zone guy, but I'm not very high on him. There's a couple other names on guys that I'm a little high on. So a couple of names I wanted to, just kind of throw out there, just guys to keep an eye on, guys you might want to stream later on in the season. Ricky Seals-Jones, he's the starting tight end for the Cardinals. So, there's been a lot of buzz about him in this offseason. Just a guy, a name out there you might want to keep.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We had the RSJ and ASJ, right?
ASJ, yeah. The
Austin Safari and Jenkins.
Yeah, he's the tight end for Jacksonville.
Now with the Marquise Lee injury.
Yeah, well, Marquise Lee injury last night, unfortunately, looks like he destroyed his knee. More targets are going to go his way. Oh, another guy I wanted to talk about really quick that I forgot to mention in the receivers was Cole. Cole is going to be now probably number one target in Jacksonville. Again, you got Blake Bortles there throwing both of these guys the ball, but just a name to keep in mind.
Okay,
a guy that might be able to produce on certain weeks, but you don't want to totally forget about him. George Kittle again is a guy in San Francisco.
Tight end
In San Francisco, yeah. With him and Garoppolo comes from a system in New England where they like to throw the ball to tight ends a lot. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but just another name out there that you wanna keep an eye on.
All right. Anything else on tight ends?
Mike Gesicki.
All right. Yeah, you said that already.
Yeah, might just be a red zone target. Big guy, catches the ball, play basketball, so he's
one of those guys.
Yeah, he's one of those. Knows how to box out, knows how to position himself in the right way. Got really good hands. Hasn't really done much in preseason. In practice, though, he has shined in practice in the red zone. We have 3 really good safeties here in Fitz and Jones and McDonald, and he's caught touchdowns over all of those guys in the end zone. Just a guy that if him and Tannehill can kind of get a little rapport going, might be a very touchdown dependent guy. But again, if you stream him on certain weeks against really bad defenses, might get you a little production.
Gotcha.
And that's pretty much it for tight ends. I mean, you got Austin Hooper at Atlanta, who's going to have a high-powered offense. You got a couple of other guys out there, but the rest of these names for me, outside of like Jack Doyle and maybe Njoku, the rest of these guys are just guys you want to
interchangeable.
stream.
Yeah, you just pick the plus matchup and go with that.
Yeah, you draft these guys really late in the draft, rounds 9, 10, 11, 12, and you hope you get lucky with one of these guys.
Got it. All right, so before we wrap up, just wanted to go back and see if there's any names at any position that you wanted to touch on. I know one big one that we missed was Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah, we mentioned his name. Larry Fitzgerald is like the ageless wonder, man. The guy produces year in, year out. It doesn't seem to matter who his quarterbacks are. He's still going to put up good numbers. So he's a guy that I would be very, very happy with if he's my number 2 receiver. He's actually on my low end of the tier 2 list.
Okay.
So, this is the thing with Larry Fitzgerald. He was on the field 98% of the offensive snaps for the Cardinals. What? Even at his age. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
98% of the snaps. To me, that screams he's going to get targets. He's going to get looks. He's a huge part of that offense. Now, granted, last year they didn't have David Johnson, but I mean, he was second in the league in targets with 162 targets.
Holy shit.
Who was his quarterback last year?
Yeah. Drew Stanton?
Q Crickets.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Who is his quarterback? 162 targets he still had. I mean, 3 straight years with a top 11 finish for fantasy receivers. He's got Sam Bradford, who can put up really good numbers when he plays, and he's got a young guy that I really liked a lot, Josh Rosen, going over there. Listen, man, you can't shy away from Larry Fitzgerald. Yeah. Who cares what his age is? And he's one of those few guys that I like personality wise. You never hear anything bad about the guy.
No, Larry Fitzgerald is the prototype,
first batted Hall of Famer
in every respect that you want for an athlete.
Absolutely, he blocks, he catches, he runs.
Good teammate, good community guy.
Yeah, I mean,
everything smart,
you want
educated.
in a player.
That's the kind of guy that that
You
the
build your
NFL should be promoting.
Yeah, that's the type of guy you build your franchise around.
Absolutely, 100%.
I don't have enough things, good things to say about this guy.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was just gonna reiterate. I would be thrilled if he's my number 2 receiver.
Another name that we just mentioned a little while ago, just because these stats were staggering when we talked about it, was Blake Bortles. If you're looking at a quarterback, he is the Lord Emperor of garbage time.
Yeah. And it's frustrating because I'm a football guy. Like, I like to watch the games. I like to, kind of break things down and whatever. And it's frustrating when you see a guy 3.5 quarters is just, how is this guy a starter in the NFL? And then for 8 minutes of the fourth quarter, he throws for 140 yards and two touchdowns. And all of a sudden, he has 28 fantasy points. And you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, man. So,
and, as a fantasy player, I guess you don't really care where your points come from or how they come.
Right. It's just stressful. Like, if you're the kind of guy who sits down and you're watching the game, you're watching Red Zone, and you just see the time ticking away, and he hasn't done shit. It's a stressful experience to have a guy like that on your roster.
It's frustrating.
If you're like our boy D, who just waits till the day's over and then he sees all the results, then awesome, because then you didn't stress that shit at all.
I don't know how the hell he does.
Yeah, I don't know how to. That's a skill. That's not a will. That's a skill.
Yeah.
Because you have to.
That's in the DNA or something.
Yeah.
You can't teach that type of stuff. But but for me, part of fantasy football and part of this whole experience is
suffering through it like that.
Watching the games.
Absolutely, 100%.
How many times have we paced back and forth? Come on, we need this guy. One catch. Come on. And you're standing and jumping in your living room. To me, that's part of the excitement. That's why I do it. If I didn't have that, I don't know if I would really be even playing fantasy football.
Sure. No, 100%.
But yeah, Blake Bortles, if I'm not mistaken, we can look up the numbers, but if I'm not mistaken, he's finished in the top 14 at quarterbacks the last 2 years, or it might have even been top 12 in points for the last 2 years, Blake Bortles. So yeah, if you're in a 12-man league, he's a borderline QB1. Which is, it's astounding to me if you watch the guy play because he's just so inaccurate. But, I guess, again, as a fantasy player, you don't really care how your points come as long as they come.
Let's see. Blake Bortles last year, I'm not going to get into ranking or whatever, but Blake Bortles last year put up 250 fantasy points. Blake Bortles last year was a 13.
Yeah, so top 14. Yeah, so he's borderline quarterback 1. Again, on certain weeks, I'm sure he had weeks where, he was putting up 28, 29 points, and getting you a lot of production. Now
and the difference between him and the other two guys is 5 yards. 5 points.
Yeah. So who were those other two guys?
Goff with 5 points, and Roethlisberger was a 10-point difference.
Yeah, so he's there. He's there.
Breaking news: Eric Decker announces retirement from NFL.
Okay, there you go. I wasn't going to draft him anyways. Good for him. He had a good long career, and seemed like a pretty good guy.
And a really hot wife.
Oh my God, super hot. Yeah, so that team's not built for him to throw the ball a lot and put up crazy numbers. It's big defense, big running back, that type of thing. Now with Marquise Lee getting hurt, how is that going to hurt his production? Cole. The receiver over there now might be the number one guy. So another guy that just got a huge bump in drafts because of this injury, unfortunately, to Marcus Lee. A couple of guys we didn't talk about, I want to talk about really quick. Ingram. We didn't talk about Mark Ingram. Similar to what we were talking about before. If you have the team that can support him sitting on the bench for the first 4 games of the season, he's going to come back and he's going to be pretty productive. So, a guy, I think he's going in most drafts in about the 5th or 6th round. So if you've built your team to support him sitting on the bench, he's going to come back and he's probably going to be very productive, and he's on a contract year as well. So are they going to run him into the ground? Are they going to give him the ball a lot? How is he going to play knowing that it's a contract year? Is he going to want to go out there and go crazy and try to get that big contract elsewhere? Who knows? But, he's a name that we didn't mention that I think we need to that we needed to
That
bring
bears
up.
mentioning. Yeah.
Also, Marlon Mack and Lamar Miller. We didn't talk about either of those two guys. Lamar Miller, he's one of those burn guys for us. He's a guy that didn't really.
This is the problem with Lamar Miller.
live up to the hype.
Lamar Miller will have 2 or 3 huge games a season, which will inflate his fantasy total, and then he'll totally disappear for a few other games.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's very inconsistent. All the talent in the world, super fast guy. Maybe some of the problem with him is that he hasn't really been on a team with consistent quarterback play throughout his career. So if we get a full season of Deshaun Watson and he's an effective player and he lives up to the potential, that definitely could help Lamar Miller. I hope not, because we don't have him.
The other thing is Deonta Foreman, the backup running back for him, the one that a lot of people think was going to, eat into his carries, is injured. He got injured last year. I think it was an Achilles that he had, and it was kind of towards the middle or end of last year. So there's a good chance that he's not going to be ready until maybe the middle of this year. So Lamar Miller, kind of gets a little bit of a bump up because of that. He doesn't really have any competition on a team that might be pretty good this year. So, he's a guy he's just there for me. He's not a guy that I'm wowed about, but at the right price, he's worth taking a look at. Same thing with Marlon Mack. Not a guy that I'm super thrilled with. If Andrew Luck stays healthy for the full season and turns out to be the Andrew Luck of old, that's a big bump for Marlon Mack. We know what Frank Gore did there for those couple of years. Frank Gore is a Hall of Famer.
Larry Fitzgerald, an ageless wonder.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer.
He's going to get you 60 yards every week.
Yeah, pretty much.
So if that's the kind of guy you need, Frank Gore also is a good guy to keep an eye on in the
as
Miami
a handcuff,
situation.
later on. Even though I'm really high on Kenyon Drake, Frank Gore definitely is going to have a role in the Dolphins offense. But Marlon Mack, not the greatest offensive line, but you got some weapons at receiver. You got a decent weapon at tight end, and Andrew Luck is always a threat. So you can't, crowd the box on Marlon Mack. So, he's a guy to keep an eye on too, I think, in the later rounds at the right value. I really want to talk a little bit more about Kerryon Johnson. We mentioned his name before, but I really like him. I really like Kerryon Johnson. If I'm sitting there and I'm looking at Marlon Mack and maybe Isaiah Crowell, which is a guy we didn't mention, or Kerryon Johnson, I'm taking the shot at Kerryon Johnson.
Okay. What team's he on?
He is playing for the Detroit Lions.
Okay, that's right. He's a backup to Abdullah right now.
He's really... they're
1A, 1B, whatever.
Yeah, they're calling Abdullah the starter, but I think that's just to be nice. I think they might even try to move Abdullah to a team that maybe has a running back injury or whatever. LeGarrette Blount is there, so LeGarrette Blount might get a couple of goal line carries.
LeGarrette.
Whatever. Dude. Whatever his name is. I know I've fucked up probably 7 or 8 names already. Like I told you, I write in cursive, so I can't read it sometimes. Yeah, those guys, it's going to be kind of a running back by committee to start, but I think he is by far the most talented guy on that roster at running back, and I think he's going to end up getting the nod maybe week 4, 5, 6.
Speed guy,
big guy, catch the ball guy. He's going to be pretty good. He might be the number 3 rookie running back behind Barkley and Royce. I can see him being the number 3 guy, and the only reason is because it might take him a couple of weeks to kind of get started up there. A couple of guys we didn't talk about. There's a big log jam, I guess you can call it, at running back at Green Bay. You got Jamal Williams, you got Aaron Jones, and you got Ty Montgomery, who just got banged up. Aaron Jones, to me, is the more talented running back in that group, but he is suspended for the first 2 games of the season.
You done messed up, Aaron!
Yeah, I mean, he got, suspended, and Williams is going to start the season. Now, are they going to run the hot hand if Williams starts off really good? Are they going to kind of go back to Aaron Jones being the guy once he comes back? Where does Ty Montgomery fit? So it's kind of a logjam there. There's a couple of places that have that situation. The Patriots always have, those kind of issues. With Sony Michel, a guy that we didn't mention. He's already a little dinged up, but he's very talented rookie. But Rex Burkhead might get a lot of touches. James White might get a lot of touches. There's just Cleveland has a logjam there. There's a lot of places. The Redskins seem to have a little bit of a logjam now with Adrian Peterson there. So just, something to keep an eye on. I'm not saying stay away from these guys. I'm saying just don't overdraft them. Wait a little. Get guys that you know are going to be workhorses. Keep an eye on the waiver wires for some of these guys. Maybe they'll break out later on in the year, and you can pick one of them up.
Fat Rob. That's a waiver wire. You might get
super deep sleeper.
Yeah, you might get really lucky, and this is the year the ball bounces his way, because the guy, he's a hard runner, gets downfield, not great with his hands. I think that's what they were counting on Perrine for, but then last year he was not great at that either.
That's why they drafted Darius Geis.
Yeah,
unfortunately he got injured, but that kind of stuff happens. Hopefully he comes back next year and he's a monster. But another guy, again, we mentioned his name, but we didn't talk too much about him, was Chris Carson. He's currently the number one guy in Seattle. I like Rashad Penny a little better. Talent-wise, I like him a little better. But Carson right now is slotted to be the starter. How are they going to use him? I don't know. Pete Carroll has raved about Carson. So, it's always nice to be on the coach's good side, especially when he's the one determining who's going to start or not. But I think in the long run, Penny's going to be the guy you're going to want to grab and stash. So, just another name, though. Beginning of the season, first 3-4 weeks of the season, you want a hot hand. You want somebody that might carry you. Like, let's say you have a Mark Ingram on your team for the first 4 games of the season. You pick up Chris Carson. Hopefully he lasts those first 3 or 4 games until Mark Ingram comes back, and maybe Rashard Penny takes over, and you can get rid of Carson, or you can trade him, put him on the back of your list, whatever you do. But that's a name, that's an interesting combination there. That Mark Ingram, Carson, might lose his job by the time Mark Ingram comes back. Just, same thing with Kerryon Johnson. You draft Kerryon Johnson and you draft Carson. Maybe it takes a couple of weeks for Kerryon to take over that starting role, but I think eventually he will.
Gotcha. All right, man. I think that's, as much as I love to keep this going, we have to get to our draft.
Yeah, man. And listen, later on in the year, when we do the middle of the year review and we do the end of the year review, I think we'd love to hear from you guys if any of our information helped you guys, if any of our information hurt you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like they say,
send a hate mail.
Rate them 5 stars if you love them, 5 stars if you hate them. Send us emails, send them comments. Let them know if we help. Maybe maybe one of these things helped you win your league. Let us know.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Any feedback on the kind of information that we can do to make this better for you guys? Ultimately, we want you guys to enjoy the show and want to get some value out of it. So any kind of information that you like, that you didn't like, stuff that you want to hear more about, please, by all means, the email is backofthebusmiami@gmail.com.
All right, man.
And that's it, man. Plex.
Thanks for coming out.
See you next time.